I came back home thinking nothing had changed. I was wrong the moment I stepped onto that roof and heard her voice say my name. My name is Matthew. I am 23, and 2 years away in Cincinnati for HVAC tech school felt longer than it should have. Coming back to the quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio felt like stepping into an old picture frame. Same cracked sidewalks. Same maple trees turning gold. Same smell of wood smoke floating in the air like nothing ever moved on. I told myself I was back just to save money, stack some cash, and figure out my next step. That was the excuse I kept repeating. I rented a tiny studio above a laundromat. One room, a hot plate, and a bathroom so small you had to turn sideways to close the door. It was cheap and close to everything I knew, especially close to Eric's place. Eric had been my best friend since we were kids. Same street, same bikes, same trouble. He still lived in the house we grew up hanging around. The day I signed my lease, he texted me. The roof took a beating in the last storm. Come fix it and I'll buy the beer. I grabbed my tool belt and walked over. The house looked smaller than I remembered. White siding, black shutters. The porch swing still creaked even when no one sat on it. Eric met me in the driveway, wearing an old Ohio State hoodie, smiling like I had never left. We climbed up on the roof and fell into that easy silence you only get with someone who knows you without trying. The sun was high. My shirt stuck to my back. Sweat rolled down my neck. We stopped for water, and that was when she came outside. Sandra, Eric's older sister. I had not seen her in years. Back then, she felt untouchable. Perfect car. Perfect smile. The kind of girl everyone noticed but pretended not to. I remembered her waving goodbye when I left for school, sunglasses on, already moving forward. Now she stood barefoot in the grass, wearing an oversized cream sweater that slipped off one shoulder. No makeup. No sunglasses. Just her natural face and a calm smile that felt quieter than I remembered. She held 2 glasses of iced lemon water. She handed one to Eric, then held the other out to me. "Hey, stranger," she said. "Welcome home." Our fingers brushed when I took the glass, just for a second. Still, my chest tightened like I had missed a step on the ladder. Eric drank his water and went right back up to work. Sandra stayed where she was, watching me like she was trying to understand something. I wiped my forehead with my shirt and reached for more shingles. I could feel her eyes on me without looking. "You filled out," she said, almost to herself. I laughed, awkward and quick. 2 years of hauling equipment will do that. She did not laugh back. She kept studying me like she was comparing the man in front of her to the boy she used to tease. "You really changed," she said. Then, like it was nothing, she added, "I'd totally go out with you now." My hammer slipped in my hand. My heart skipped hard enough to scare me. Eric was on the other side of the roof, unaware. Sandra did not smile or laugh. She held my eyes for one long moment, then turned and walked back inside. I stood there frozen, water glass in one hand, shingles in the other, her words hanging in the air like smoke. The rest of the afternoon blurred. We finished the job. We drank beer on the porch. We talked about sports and work and nothing that mattered. Sandra stayed inside. That night, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles. Her voice kept replaying in my head. Not teasing, not playful, certain. Like she had already decided something. The next morning, Eric texted again. "Pancakes if you want. Roof still needs work." I walked over before I could talk myself out of it. The house smelled like butter and coffee. Eric's mom waved at me from the table. Eric flipped bacon at the stove. Sandra leaned against the counter in gray joggers and an old sweatshirt, hair still damp. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Morning, handyman," she said softly. Something shifted in my chest. I told myself to ignore it. I told myself she was my best friend's sister. I told myself I was just fixing a roof. But deep down, I already knew. I was standing at the edge of something that could change everything. For the next week, fixing the roof became an excuse instead of a job. I showed up almost every afternoon after my shift at the shop. Eric was around sometimes, juggling calls or running for supplies, but other times it was just me on the roof and the quiet hum of the neighborhood below. Leaves started to fall. one by one, slow and lazy, like the season itself was easing into something new. Sandra started finding reasons to be outside. At first, it was small things. Watering the flowers along the fence. Raking leaves that did not really need raking. Sitting on the porch steps with a mug of coffee, watching me work without saying much. I pretended not to notice how often my eyes drifted toward her. Then one afternoon, she dragged an old chair into the shade and sat down with a sketch pad on her lap. Her pencil moved fast, confident. I kept telling myself to focus on the shingles, but every time I glanced down, she was there. Sometimes she caught me looking. When she did, she smiled like she already knew. We started talking more. Nothing serious at first. She asked about my job, about compressors and refrigerants, about why my hands were always scraped up. I asked about her sketches, why she drew so many rooms filled with plants and light. She told me she studied interior design, worked for a firm downtown, then left when it stopped feeling like hers. Now she freelanced, set her own hours, chose her own projects. I needed air, she said once, handing me a cold bottle of water, somewhere I could breathe. I told her about Cincinnati, about moving apartments every year, about the girlfriend who said long distance was too hard, about the night my car slid on black ice and I realized I was tired of pretending I had it all figured out. She listened without interrupting, just watched me with her chin resting on her hand. "You're not the kid who used to eat glue in art class anymore," she said. "You're solid." The word landed heavier than it should have. Solid, like something you could stand on. The looks lasted longer after that. The conversation stretched later into the evening. Eric started noticing, even if he did not say anything. He raised an eyebrow when I lingered in the kitchen or when Sandra laughed a little too easily at something I said. Then Ryan showed up. I was on the roof when the silver car pulled into the driveway. Clean, shiny, too expensive for the street. A guy stepped out wearing pressed pants and a jacket that did not belong in a driveway full of leaves. He held a huge bouquet of white flowers. Sandra came out to meet him. She had changed. Jeans that fit just right. A soft blouse. Her hair down. Ryan handed her the flowers like he was making a point. She took them, polite, but distant. When he leaned in to kiss her, she turned her head just enough that his lips missed. I felt something twist in my chest. Ryan glanced up and saw me on the roof. His smile tightened. He slid his arm around her waist and guided her toward the porch. She did not pull away, but she did not lean in either. I stayed on the roof longer than needed, hammering nails that did not matter. When I finally climbed down, the car was gone. Sandra was kneeling in the garden, tearing herbs with more force than necessary. "You okay?" I asked. She did not look up. He thinks flowers fix things. "Do they?" She laughed once, sharp and tired. Not when the problem is trust. I wanted to ask more. I did not. Some things felt too close to touch. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing Ryan's hand on her waist, kept hearing the quiet edge in her voice. I told myself to back off. Told myself it was complicated. Told myself she was not mine to think about. But the truth was, I already was. The party happened that Saturday. Family, neighbors, kids running around, smoke from the grill hanging low. I stayed busy helping Eric, keeping my hands occupied. Sandra arrived late, carrying a bottle of wine, wearing a dark sweater that fell just off her shoulder. When she saw me, her eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary. Later, I ducked inside for a drink and found her alone in the kitchen. She was rinsing a glass, sleeves pushed up, freckles visible under the light. Ryan texted. She said quietly, "He wants to talk again." I stepped closer before thinking, "Do you want to?" She shook her head. "He does not hear, no." I looked at her, really looked at her. Tired eyes, strong posture, someone who had been carrying too much for too long. "What do you want?" I asked. She met my eyes. "Peace." Before I could stop myself, I reached out and caught her wrist gently. She did not pull away. Her pulse jumped under my fingers. For 1 second, the whole world narrowed to that small space between us. Then someone burst into the kitchen, and the moment shattered. But the line had already been crossed. And I knew there was no going back. The fallout did not wait. 2 days later, Eric cornered me in his garage. The same place we used to hide as kids, sitting on overturned buckets, dreaming about getting out of this town someday. Now it smelled like oil and dust and anger. He shut the door behind us, slow and heavy. "I saw the messages," he said. No greeting, no smile. My stomach dropped, but my hand stayed steady. He held up his phone. My name on the screen. One line. One heart. I could not pretend anymore. "It's not what you think," I said. "Then explain it," he snapped. "Because it looks like my best friend sneaking around with my sister." I took a breath. It wasn't planned. I didn't push anything. It just happened. He paced, running a hand through his hair. "She's been through enough. Ryan messed her up. And now you think you're different?" "I don't think I'm a fix," I said. "I think I'm someone who listens." That stopped him. He stared at me like he did not want to hear the truth. "Get out," he said finally. "Don't come back until you figure out whose side you're on." I left without another word. Sandra disappeared after that. No texts, no porch light, no sketch pad in the yard. The silence was louder than any fight. I threw myself into work, staying late, taking extra jobs, coming home exhausted just to lie awake replaying every moment. 4 nights later, the storm hit. Rain slammed against my window just after midnight. Wind howled through the street. I was half asleep when I heard the knock. Sharp. Urgent. I opened the door and there she was. Sandra stood soaked from head to toe, hair plastered to her face, holding a small bag like it was the only solid thing left. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "I can't stay there," she said. "Ryan showed up again. Eric won't talk to me." I stepped aside without thinking. She walked in, dripping rain onto the floor, filling the room with the smell of wet earth and something familiar that felt like home. I wrapped a towel around her shoulders. She did not move, just looked at me. "You make me feel calm," she said quietly, "like I don't have to be anything else." The words hit harder than any argument. "We can leave," I said, "just for a few days, somewhere quiet." She searched my face, then nodded once. We drove through the storm, the town fading behind us, headlights cutting through the dark. She reached for my hand on the console and held it tight. The motel by the lake was nothing special. Peeling paint, buzzing neon sign, but the door locked and the world stayed outside. The first morning we woke to birds and water instead of shouting and pressure. We drank bad coffee and laughed about it. We walked along the shore, throwing stones and talking about nothing important. For the first time, everything felt simple. On the second night, sitting by the water, she leaned into me. "I don't want to hide," she said. "I don't want to run." "Then we won't," I told her. "We go back. Together." She was quiet, then nodded. When we returned, I went to see Eric alone. He listened. He did not smile. He did not yell. He just warned me to be careful with her heart. That evening, Sandra came to my place with dinner in her hands and nerves in her eyes. "We're not a secret anymore," she said. I crossed the room and pulled her close. For the first time, the kiss did not feel like a risk. It felt like a beginning. The quiet after everything settled felt strange at first. Not empty. Not heavy. Just honest. Sandra stayed the night. Not because we planned it, but because neither of us wanted to pretend we were still unsure. We ate cold leftovers on the small counter, barefoot, leaning into each other like it was natural, like it had always been waiting. In the morning, light slipped through the thin curtains of my studio. Sandra sat on the edge of the bed wearing my old sweatshirt, sketching on a scrap of paper she found in my toolbox. I watched her without hiding it. "What are you drawing?" I asked. She smiled without looking up. "Something that feels safe." That word stayed with me all day, Eric called that afternoon. He did not apologize. He did not joke. He just said he wanted to talk. We met at the park where we used to play ball as kids. The swing still creaked. The trees still leaned the same way. "I don't like how this started," he said, "but I see her now. She's lighter, and that matters." I nodded. "I won't hurt her." He looked at me for a long moment, then held out his hand. I took it. It was not forgiveness, not fully, but it was a start. That night, Sandra and I walked through the neighborhood together. The air was cold. The streetlights flickered on one by one. She slipped her hand into mine like it belonged there. I spent so long choosing what kept everyone else calm, she said. I forgot about my own heart. I stopped walking and faced her. Love doesn't start with fixing or proving anything, I said. It starts right here. I tapped her chest gently. She smiled, soft and real, and leaned in. The kiss was slow, certain, no fear in it. Weeks passed. Winter crept in. Life found a rhythm. She worked from my place sometimes. Sketches spread across the table. I picked up more hours and started saving for something bigger. Not an escape. A future. Ryan faded out. Not all at once, but enough. Eric started dropping by again. Laughter returned to places it had left. One night, sitting on the floor with takeout boxes between us, Sandra looked at me and said, "You didn't chase me. You didn't try to save me." I shrugged. I just stood still. She reached for my hand. That's what I needed. I came home thinking nothing would change. I was wrong. Because sometimes, love does not rush in loudly. Sometimes, it waits quietly until you are ready to feel it.